Okay, so now we are here back in the another lesson of the simulating the dusty storm effect in the Maya. So we just dropped this thing in lesson 04, and now in lesson 05 we're gonna fix some few issues. Well, the most common issue was that the speed of the fluids. So we're also gonna show you the play blast of the fluids once we're gonna, you know, get completed with some more parameters of the fluids. So let's just start working over here and just start fixing the things. Well, there are certain things that need to be taken care first of all before we, move ahead. One of the most important thing here is that in the emitter attribute is the turbulence that I think so I have discussed, which is very important thing to be take down while creating the fluids because you can see that once we are creating the fluids, you can see that this section is not emitting the fluid, so that will going to add a lot of subtlety inside the reactions. All right, now moving for the next thing, it is obviously one can predict that these simulation rate scales. Yeah, simulation rate scales are extremely important to describe the, you can say, the fluency, or you can say the the speed of the fluids, or you may could say the rate at which the fluid has to move. All right. So what we're going to do here in that, we're going to do some cheat. Well, why we are doing that? Because we don't want the computer to calculate or to compute the unnecessary frames. By unnecessary, what I mean is that, let's suppose we're going to dip down the simulation rate scale to zero point 0.1. Okay. And now if we're going to play the timeline, you're going to notice that the rate of the fluids, or the speed at which the fluid will going to be get emitted from the plane, will significantly going to get dropped. So that means that the problem is now fixed. But there is another issue, and the issue is that it will going to eat up a lot of the frames. So what should be the best solution to fix that up is that we're going to key that up. What we could do here is that, let's say at frame 0 or at frame 1, we're going to key that thing to the 1. So the simulation rate scale will remain 1 in the beginning of the frames. So just to make it a little bit more easy, let me just disable the evaluation, and let's just do one thing at frame, let's say 100, or maybe at frame 50. I think so the frame 100 will gonna work. We're going to put that thing to zero point 0.1, and then we're gonna set another key over here. So it clearly means that while traveling from 0 to 100 frames, the simulation rate scale will going to get significantly dropped. Well, there is another case. It is from which frame we should start focusing the render, or I mean for our final output, which particular frame we should need to consider. Well, the case is that what I prefer is that after 200 till 300, or maybe from 175 to frame 325 is the best, you could say the best scene setup where you could show the impact of the dusty storm. All right. So with this, we don't need to show the frames from 0 to 180. All right. But to create the fluid, we do need to have, since we also going to do the cache of the fluids. So from that point of view also, we need to calculate the whole fluids from 0 till 300. All right. So here we go with that. And let's cancel the disable the evaluation. And I'm also going to hide the fluid emitter so that it will be easy for me to see the things. And now, if you're going to play the timeline, you're going to notice that the fluids will obviously going to be little fast, but they'll start getting settled. All right. And this thing is also, I would like to leave on you, because if you're using this particular scene scale, or you can say the background, you need to, might fix up the things according to your own artistic decisions, because I once decided to set the simulation rate scale from 0 to 50, but then I decided to move it ahead to the frame 100. That's, completely up to you, because here you could see that if you notice in this case, the fluids and within frame 24 or 25 has already covered this house. That means if you have to show this particular scene from frame 200, so the fluids might could be somewhere on here or touching this particular house or maybe this one. So that means most of your elements of the BG would have been disappeared, or they are already being under the influence of the fluid, so which will going to hamper the visibility. So what we could do is that if you wanted to show very soft and subtle movement of the fluids, we need to fix the attribute. That means the simulation rate scale does not require to be such a high. We could leave it to 0 to frame 50. All right, this is again your own artistic decision. All right, so that's done. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to play it again. And here you could see that your fluid will be way too much slow as compared to the earlier result. That means I think so this is much better as compared to the previous one. All right, so moving forward and moving further, I'm going to stop that up, put escape. Now we are entering into the most important settings of the fluid. Well, for the final reaction, obviously I need to crank up the resolution from 150 to maybe 250 or to 300, but here I just cannot do that since it's going to take a lot of time to compute. So we need to take care of the max resolutions, so, because we don't want the fluid container to be get stopped, because this is the maximum resolution 200 supported for the AX, Y, and Z. So what I'm going to do is that we could take that thing to 400, which is quite a stable value. The rest of the things will remain same. We're not going to change them. Now we are moving towards the density, which is a very important sections for the fluids. In case of the density, again, it depends up to your artistic decision, but I still could see that when I'm going to show you the play blast, the buoyancy is still a little high. So what you could do is that you could drop it to 0.5, or you let it remain to be 1, because the slow movement of the dusty storm is always going to be appreciated. Okay, so let's just do one thing for at least for now. We'll drop it to 1, and if we're gonna see the speed a little bit more in our play blast, we're gonna reduce that thing to the 0.5. All right, moving next, we like to fix up the dissipation, so we need to give it to 0.25 or maybe zero point 0.2, because the fluids or the dust will also need to be get settled. So we just cannot leave that thing to 0. Now we don't need anything diffusion, pressure, or anything like that, because there isn't any thermodynamics going on inside there. So there is no requirement for the pressure or any pop-up kind of things. We need to work upon the noise, and this particular parameter will going to add the detail inside the, you could say, the regular moving voxels, because noise will going to disturb the voxel, so that will gonna add some more detail to our you can say the dust bowl. So the noise would be 0.1, should be nice. Then we're going to come to the gradient force, which is a very important attribute for the fluids to get solved. This particular attribute will going to add the, you could say that the velocities will going to get affected in all of the 360, or you may could say from the XYZ vectors. This will going to give some energy to the fluids or to the voxels. So we'll like to fix up the gradient force to 60 at least. All right, and with that, what we're going to do, just take a look at that, and I can also reduce the base resolution so that it would be easier for us to follow the steps. And although I do acknowledge that while reducing the quality of the voxels has already has also reduced the look and feel of the fluids, but still you could see that there is a kind of a change inside the reaction. So I do one thing, I'll again set that thing back to the zero frame and put that thing to 150 again. And now let's come back to the next section, which is the velocity. So in case of the velocity, we need to have a lot of swirl. So let me just gonna put that thing to 10. And the most important attribute for the entire reaction for sustaining and simulating the fluids, which is the simulation process of the dusty storm, is the noise. Well, you need to pay a lot of attention over here. Just why? Because this attribute has a lot of impact and significance upon the voxels. If you do not switch this option, I mean, if you just do not give the values, the entire fluids will remain soft and it just like, not going to have a lot of interest in them. It's just like that some soft smoke is approaching towards you. But with the noise, you're going to see a lot of powerful, smaller details inside the fluids. It's just like that. Without the noise, you are really missing the bumpiness inside the surface properties of your material. This is the only example that I could give it to you right now. So noise need to be fixed, all right? Very, very important attribute. And then again, we also do have the turbulence, so we also require to give some turbulence. Let's say 0.35 and zero point 0.5 and again 0.35 suits to me a better value. You may could give it 0.25 as well, it's not an issue. All right, so with that, it's been fixed. Now if I do have to play the timeline, you're going to notice that there will going to be a lot of change, but I just cannot make you show right now because I need to show you all these things in the play blast. And of course we need to fix up so many things like the shadow, the color, the density, opacity. There are so many other things as well to sustain the realistic behavior of the dusty storm. So what do we do? Let's take a break. Let's pause that thing over here and we're gonna start fixing the other things in the next lessons. All right, so I'm gonna take a pause over here.